Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the live show with Musart. Today I'm joined with Karla, who is a Muslim revert and a DV survivor. And she's here to share her lovely journey where she has held on to her faith regardless of what's come across. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
You know, we've been following each other like stalkers for the last few weeks, I think.
Yes, indeed.
And these lovely messages I get from every day.
Yes.
You have a very interesting story, how you accepted Islam and also for the recent course of events that's been happening with you. What I really want to know is what inspired you to come into Islam, because I absolutely love Muslim revert stories, because every story is different to its own, and it's just so enlightening, and it just makes you, being born a Muslim, it's always different. So it just enlightens you even further to Islam, that, it goes even deeper and deeper and deeper. So do you mind sharing that, please?
Yeah, sure. Well, my journey began in Mexico. I'm Mexican, born and raised there. I was raised a Catholic, but to be very honest with you, I was never a proper Catholic. Used to go to church, used to pray. I always believed in God. That was the one certainty I always had, that there was a God. But the religion never did motivate me to go above and beyond that. So I was in a very comfortable zone when it came down to religion. So years went by, and I was never really into doing a first communion. I was never really into getting married by church, or comulgating and going to a priest to tell my sins and all this. So I kind of refused it from the very beginning, from a very young age, until I turned 30. So when that happened, I had everything. I had a family, I had a wonderful job, I had my lovely son, I had health, wealth, everything I had. And I still felt empty. So when that happened to me, I started feeling it in such a way that would make me cry. So I would literally go to bed every night and cry there in the dark. And I would actually say, why is this happening to me if I have everything that any other person would want to have?
Feeling empty.
Yeah, I felt really empty. And then all of a sudden it kind of hit me. It was like, I need to find God. But that's the thing, you see, that's the funny thing. I always knew God was there with me. I just needed to find the path back to Him, let's just say it like that. And I began my journey into looking a religion. So I went to, getting to know Christians, Jewish, Jehovah's Witnesses, Buddhists, Mormons, because we have all these religions in Mexico, up until a brother on Facebook requested a friendship. And then, as a non-Muslim, I said, yeah, why not? Turns out that the brother was from Argelia, and he started talking to me about religion, this and that, because I explained, my current situation. And then the brother talked to me about Islam, which I had no idea what Islam was back in that day. I only knew about September 11 and all the negative things in the media. So I said, fine, I'm going to listen to him. I'm very open-minded, so I said, okay. He started talking about the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He started talking about what Islam was about, this and that. So he really made me feel peaceful and made me feel like, oh, that is something that I really want to look into. So I was really curious to know why was such a bad religion in media. So I said, I'm not going to pay attention to the Googling I did, because I did Google everything. I said, I'm going to find out myself what this is about. So I went to a bookshop and I tried to get a Quran. I went to 3 of them, I couldn't get no Qurans. And then the last chance I had, it was in a mall near my house. And then I found it. It was the one Quran in the shop. And I bought it.
In Mexico?
In Mexico, yeah. In Guadalajara, Mexico, that's my city. And then it took me a week to read the Quran. So when I first started, I had no idea, of everything that you have to do before you read the Quran. I had no idea that it would start from back to front. I had no idea of anything. And I finished it in a week, and wow, it was mind-blowing. I have to say, I felt so peaceful, such a warmth, in my soul. And everything that the Quran said made total and complete sense to me. And then I kind of reviewed why I never wanted to do a First Communion, why I never wanted to wear a cross, why I never wanted to do certain things. And it kind of clicked into me. So I was really, really happy. And then I started, I moved on to do a research to see if I was going to have a community here, something like a church, something like that. I didn't know it was called mosque back in the day.
Yeah. But isn't Mexico most?
It's a 99.5 Catholic country.
That's what I meant, like it's pure Catholic.
Yeah, there's a lot of Christians and, Christian Orthodox and Jewish people and everything, but mostly 99 point something Catholics. We don't really... Mexican people are very warm. They're open-minded. But when it comes down to religion, it's really hard for Muslims because of all this negative attention. Yeah. So I knew for a fact that my journey wasn't going to be easy when I made the decision to do my shahada. But despite all that... So
you were looking for a mosque to do the shahada?
Yeah. So I Googled and I found a mosque, which is not a mosque like you guys have here. It was just a rented place with brothers and sisters attending to pray and,
But they were Mexican as well?
Yes, a lot of Mexican reverts, a lot of foreign brothers from Morocco, from Egypt and, different places. But it was not a big community. So when I made my shahada and I reverted, I was number 80 within the community. Okay. So right now is more than 300, 350 people now within the community in my hometown. It's still not big numbers, but from when I reverted up until now, wow, it's been growing a lot in different parts of Mexico. So right now there's 2 mosques over there. Many brothers and sisters have embraced Islam, which I think it's incredible. And it's really, really quite nice to know that, they're struggling, but they're so much into the deen that they're willing to continue being Muslims, even though it's really hard. Yeah.
So once you gave your shahada, what happened after that?
I gave my shahada, and then obviously I started the process to become a proper Muslim, let's just say it like that. So I started learning about how to do wuzu, how to pray properly, because there is no shops in Mexico, with halal abayas.
Oh, there's a big struggle.
Yes, you see, it's not only about the lack of proper mosques, funeral services, zakat institutions. There's no such thing in Mexico. So it's really hard because obviously, even for eating, you just can't do halal.
Yeah.
So I started, slowly, wearing long sleeve covering, using hijab and all this. And that's when people around me started noticing the change.
Was this your family and friends?
Yes, okay. Yes. Because literally from one day to another, I quit smoking, I quit drinking, I quit, cursing. I started behaving differently according to the sunnah. So people noticed, and some of them would be like, wow, well, what's going on with you? But some of them would be like, why are you wearing long sleeve in a 32-degree heat? So I would have to explain because I didn't want to lie. And I did, up until my mom one day came to me and she said, what's going on? Have you found a religion, this and that? And I said, yes, I have, and I hope you don't overreact. Yeah. So I told her, and she kind of did. She did overreact. I lost many friends, good friends, because of me taking this path. And my mom kind of took it in a really bad way at the beginning. Alhamdulillah, nowadays, We are very good friends. She loves Islam. She's actually trying to read the Quran.
Oh, mashallah.
So I'm very pleased and happy. But I think it has to do with my behavior and the way I've changed, that she notices that this is a really, really peaceful and nice religion. And in the end, this is what we should portray as Muslims. But yeah, once, you know, the differences came to an end, and my mom started embracing Islam as my new religion, then my son Michael made his Shahada as well.
Mashallah.
And after that, because I had been many years alone, you see, by myself, I said, well, it's time to move on and just, you know, try to, you know, get married, you know, try to do the right thing. So I started looking for someone. And alhamdulillah, between brothers and sisters, they introduced me to this brother who I ended up marrying a few years later. He's British Pakistani,
Right.
and he lives in Birmingham. And in the beginning, like, you know, any other relationship, let's just say like that, when you meet someone,
It's exciting.
yeah, it was exciting because we come from different cultures. I didn't know what the Pakistani culture was
You
about.
pass as a Pakistani with your, with your brown skin.
Yeah, and but you see, in Mexico, we don't have all the cultures that you have in the UK. So it's really strange when you come across.
So many different cultures.
Yeah. And it's, people embrace it, but it's really, really strange. You see more Americans and Canadians rather than Pakistani people, or, you know, any other Muslim brothers or sisters from anywhere else. So we kind of decided to talk, to see if we had the same goals together, to see if we had, you know, the same common interests and everything. And we did, and we kind of clicked really well. So in order for us to do the right thing, we decided to become engaged. And then he left the UK to come to me, to Mexico, because I was working at the time. I was finishing uni at the time as well.
Yeah.
And I was quite busy. I couldn't just grab my stuff and leave, you know. So he decided to come. We got married in Mexico. We did our nikah. Like I said to you, it was a bit strange because we don't have imams in Mexico. So I was literally married by this brother who was the most knowledgeable within the community. And I had 40 witnesses between Muslims and non-Muslims. And we just did like a really small wedding because I never wanted, you know, a big thing. And that was it. Then we were married, and I was very happy at the time.
And my other question would be is, you know, before you go again with your further your story, is although like if you're strict Catholic and Islam, like especially the nuns and stuff, it's, you know, the clothing is quite similar and stuff like that. So didn't your mom or your family at the time think, okay, maybe she's becoming a more religious Catholic? Didn't they think that?
Not really, you know, because I started covering my head.
Okay.
So to be quite honest, because my hometown is really hot in the summer, so it's 30-something degree heat. And when I was a non-Muslim, I used to wear, you know, string tees and short sleeve and shorts and skirts and whatnot. So you know, my hair completely loose. So my mom noticed, and my family noticed that I was completely covered from head to toe. And obviously they would start questioning me, and it would be weird to them that in such a heat you would be completely covered.
Yeah.
It would be bizarre, in other
but
words.
aren't there nuns there as well? Like in Mexico, there must be loads of nuns. And
There is a lot of nuns, but obviously you see the nuns wearing the typical nun outfit, yeah, and the crosses and everything.
Yeah.
To them is normal when they
Yeah.
see a nun, but like I said, because they're not used to seeing sisters in abayas with or similar to a nun outfit, it's quite strange, you see. It's quite bizarre to them in a way. I also think it has to do with education, because if you are fully covered, but you know, because you are educated in that sense, that this religion the outfit should be this way and this way.
Modest, yeah.
So it shouldn't be surprising or bizarre to nobody. But because it's, you know, the Mexican people are really not interested in other religions, to be honest with you. That's what takes us to that step back.
But you know, when you say they are like very strict Catholics, so because you know, there are quite a bit of similarities as well in Islam, and like, you know, there's certain rules and there's respect and there's no lying and there's no drinking and stuff like that. As a Catholic, you're not meant to do those things anyway, right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
So when you stopped all these things, what I'm trying to say is, obviously with your clothing, they must have thought, okay, something's different here.
Yes.
So I'm just saying, if you had to just stop drinking and smoking, they could have just said, okay, so you just want to be a better Christian now, you know. But it's just very interesting to see the comparison of how they took you. But anyway, so when you got married, did you come straight away to England, or did you spend some time in Mexico? And how did your friends accept you after this, or no? Or
I had a really hard time after I became a Muslim, because some of my friends did not accept it, and that's due to the negative, you know, information in the media. It is so powerful that my friends changed their minds towards me, and they were willing to leave my friendship just because they were misinformed. So it really hurt. It really hurt when that happened to me, because I lost very good people in my life, years of friendship as well. But I was willing to do it because this was really me. When you have a certainty of something, and in this case, my certainty was that there is only one God, and what the Quran says for me is the truth. And I embraced it in the best of ways, and I changed my life completely for it, and to be actually become a better person. When that happens to you, you know, whoever wants to follow you in your journey in a good way, whether it's family, whether it's friends, then they're more than welcome. When they're not willing to follow you, that means that they really didn't care for you, or they didn't really appreciate you, because one religion cannot change such a thing, I believe. So I had to let go. I had to let go of my friends, and at a certain point I was willing to let go family members as well. But everything came around in such a good way, because I was very persistent with what I was trying to do. And you know, 2 years went by, and then I decided to get married, and then my mom was happy about that as well, and then I get married, and everything is good. So we stayed in Mexico for, you know, he came, we got married, and then he stayed with me and my son in Mexico for 3 years.
Okay.
And
3 years, wow.
Yeah. So I fixed his paperwork, and he was working there, so was I, you know, doing our usual normal life. And then all of a sudden one day he decided to talk to me and said, you know what, I think we should go back to the UK. I understood the reasons why. He wasn't fluent in Spanish, that's our main language. Even though he was working for a computer company, a very famous computer company, and people know English there because they work with American people. So he was in his environment, you know, talking English to people and whatnot. But I kind of understood that he missed his culture and he missed his family. So I said, well, I'm quite adaptable, so if you want to go back, I'm going to do the right thing, and I'm going to support you. You were here for me, so I'm going to be there for you. And we started doing the paperwork. It took us a year to do the paperwork. It's I have to say it's really, really hard, because I had to do all kinds of things. I had to do an English test. I had to submit paperwork. I had to travel to Mexico DF, which is Mexico's capital, you know, to the British Embassy, and do all this series of paperwork. And in a year's time, I was granted a visa, alhamdulillah, to come in. Yeah.
So how was it? How did life start out here then?
When I came into Birmingham, it was really lovely.
Big shock.
Yeah, but it was a big shock at the same time, because even though I know the language, obviously I had no idea about culture, multicultures. I didn't know where I was most of the time. I had to learn certain things because I speak American English. I had to change words into British English and understand the accent. So it took me a long time to adapt to these things, but bit by bit I was, moving a bit forward. So the thing I did, as everybody does coming into the country, try to look for a job, try to do your national insurance number, try to learn the bus routes, everything I tried to do, speed it up in order for me to be productive in the country and not just stay like that. And I did. Alhamdulillah, I came in August 2015, and by December I was working in a Zen 16 plus college as a learning support assistant.
Oh, wow, okay.
And I was very happy, happy, mashallah.
So, did you have any children with your husband, or?
Yeah, we had 2 boys, and when we decided to come back to the UK, they were born already, so they're Mexican British.
Okay.
It's quite a combination, yeah.
They must be stunning with the mixture.
Oh, they're really lovely. But like any other babies, mashallah.
Coaches.
Yeah, they're really lovely.
So how did your relationship carry on then? Was he, because we mentioned at the beginning you're a domestic violence survivor. So
yeah.
What happened? Did things start to change? Did he start to change then, like he was in Mexico? Because you seem like you had the 3 best years of your life there at the beginning when you were married at the beginning for 3 years.
Yeah, you see, it's really funny how things can change from one moment to another. Indeed, life is unexpected. When I was in Mexico, with him, we used to do so many things together. We used to go out. My mom would babysit, and we used to spend, husband and wife time together. We used to go cinema. We used to have dinner. We used to take my eldest here, there, had friends over for dinner. Everything that a normal couple does. And then, as soon as I set foot in the UK, within a few months' time, things started to change drastically. It started.
Were you living with his in-laws? Were you living with the in-laws, or were you living?
No, we had our own house.
Okay.
And I used to visit my in-laws pretty often, literally almost every weekend. Had a really good relationship with them. Up until now, I consider that with my ex-mother-in-law, I have a really good relationship, and it's worked out obviously because we have to share the kids and everything. Yeah. But alhamdulillah, she's a really nice person to me, and we have a really good relationship.
So what changed in those few months then?
Trying to adapt to the country, he started to go out with a cousin. So because he was a cousin and the cousin was very religious, he's family, so I had no issues. Okay, fine, yeah, go out with your cousin and whatnot. I said, when I get to make friends, I'm gonna do the same thing, go out with his sisters, go out to the cinema, have dinner, have my own private time. I'm not a selfish person, so it was okay for me, being raised as a non-Muslim as well. So that happened for a couple of months. Then I started working, and then things drastically changed. I was getting into arguments with him for silly reasons, to be honest with you. If I left the window open, if I closed the window, if I took a certain amount of time outside. in the shower, if by accident I would leave a hair in the shower, if I would hang his clothes in the closet, all these things, and even ironing his shirts would become an issue because he wouldn't like the things I did, apparently. So it started like that. And
why?
You know what? I have no.
So So he would look for an argument, basically.
Yes.
He would look to pick at you, to find fault, basically. So
Yeah.
you couldn't think of anything else, so you had to think of a hair in the shower.
Everything. You see, literally the food. For 3 years when we were in Mexico, there were no complaints about the food. All of a sudden, I come here, I start cooking the same things, and there's complaints about the food. And when the food was, I think, 100% good, I would receive comments like, well, it's okay, but maybe next time you could do this. So it still wasn't enough, you see. It was pretty weird to all of a sudden
change.
Yeah, just like that. And alongside that, he would still be going out with his cousin, but then it went on going with friends. Sometimes it was non-Muslim friends, sometimes it was his co-workers from work, and this became every weekend routine. So I would be completely isolated. I would stay home, working all week, and the weekend would come, and I would be kind of happy to spend time with my husband and my kids. We would go supermarket, we would take the kids to the park, but then all of a sudden I would be brought home, and then he would get ready, showered, everything, and go. He wouldn't tell me exactly where, but he would say, "Oh, I'm going to go with such and such and this." So I had sabr for a year, like any other Muslim wife.
Did you speak to your in-laws to say why is his behavior changed?
After a year, I did. So for a year, tried to understand my husband, tried to do,
everything to please him.
The Muslim right thing to do as a wife. And I said, I'm not going to get into an argument just because he wants to go out. I'm just going to sit down, have a talk, explain myself, and let's see where we go from there. So we did. We sat down, spoke, and I said, you know what? I feel isolated. I have no friends in this country, no family, and I need to spend time with you. I need to, ask you questions. I need to, do all these things that I haven't done with you. So we actually went out once and for dinner and once to the cinema, but that was it. So in a year's time...
So he changed after that conversation?
Not really. He attempted to change, but it was only a one-off time that we did those things. And then he became worse. So he started going out again every weekend, but then he started to arrive late at home. So it would be 1 o'clock in the morning, and he would come home. Obviously, by then, I felt that, he was being... he was not being a good person to me because he wouldn't tell me where he was going. He wouldn't tell me what time he was coming back. I would wait for him, but sometimes it was 3 in the morning and he would not be there. So all of a sudden he also started drinking. As it was, he would not pray. And I actually would convince him to pray, would try to talk to him, what, why don't you pray with me? Why don't I just get you up for Fajr and we do it together and this and this and that. It was the complete opposite. He would be upset and rant at me at 5 o'clock in the morning if the alarm would go off for me to stand up and pray Fajr. So I couldn't even pray Fajr for quite a long time because he would rant. And he
just to avoid arguments.
Yeah, he would be very aggressive to me.
Wow.
From cursing me on a high level to being upset all day with me. So I had to, think things through and take a step back. I wasn't happy that those things were happening to me, but I had to do it, for the sake of my children and the sake of the marriage. So I continued working, and the relationship got worse and worse and worse.
Did you speak to your in-laws about this, his mum or his parents?
Yeah, after a year I did. after a year I did, and when I tried everything, you see.
Yeah.
I tried to convince him to go counseling. I tried to convince him to go to a mosque to speak to an imam, a third party. I tried to sit down in a public place so we wouldn't get,
An argument.
yeah, and just discuss things and to review what had happened or where did our relationship in marriage had gone wrong, and in order for us to recover, you see, like any other couple. And he would refuse. He wouldn't listen. So I ended up going to my mother and father-in-law, mainly my mother-in-law, and the only thing that I would do would be cry in front of her and ask for advice, and try to tell her, why don't you speak to your son, because I feel like this and that. So she did try, but he would be also very aggressive to her when it came down to receiving advice on his marriage. So it got to a point that she stopped trying because it would be completely negative, and she would get also the rant. So like I said to you, after that year of sabr, talking to my in-laws, and then another 8 months, things were not really well.
Did it just get worse?
It did get worse, to a point that I became so low on my imam and so low on my deen. I stopped wearing my hijab. I stopped praying, crying, thinking, why is this happening if I'm putting so much effort? I never said, why Allah are you doing this to me? Astaghfirullah, I wouldn't. It was just like, what can I do in order to
fix this?
Yeah, and to avoid such a negative thing. So it got worse and worse and worse and worse up until one day he came at 5 o'clock in the morning, drunk, to the house. And I waited for him at 3 in the morning. He never came, so I went to sleep. And then at 6 o'clock in the morning next day, kids got up and they came downstairs for milk and to turn the TV on. So I went downstairs with them and they saw their dad laying on the couch. So as soon as I walked in the room, obviously I could feel and smell the stench of alcohol and everything. And of course it made me upset and it made me disappointed, because as Muslims, we know better.
Yeah.
And the kids woke him up. He woke up upset, so he started ranting at the kids, and that's when I became upset myself. And then I said some things to him, and he went upstairs upset, and then I stayed with the kids in the room. And when he came back aggressively to me, then I said, okay, this is not going to be good. I'm just going to prepare for it. So I told my eldest one to take the kids into his room to watch a program, and the whole argument started. At that time, to be honest, Musart, I lost my sabr, and I had to retaliate, and I had to defend myself because I was being called names to the lowest of the lowest, cursing. So I had to defend myself, and to be honest with you, I started mouthing, trying to.
You're Latino, so so the Latino came out. It's like finally, like that's.
Yeah,
you pushed it too far.
You see, it's. I think it's human behavior, despite the Latino thing.
No, but I'm just saying, you women are very nice. But that's if you push the wrong button. You're in big trouble.
Yeah, you're completely right. Yeah. It's a culture thing.
It's a culture thing, and it's not like a bad thing. And you're very caring. I love Mexican and Spanish people. Like,
thank you.
They're very, very friendly. They're very nice, and they're very homely. They got warmth in them. But obviously, if you push the wrong button, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, you see. Yeah, and I think. Every culture has a specific button for that.
Yes.
And but in this case, he really pushed my buttons, and after more than a year and something, I had enough. Because, like I said to you, it was the tiny little details and the big, massive details that would get me cursed and would get me mistreated and everything else. So we argued, and all of a sudden, I see a fist coming at my face. And I kind of you know, with my eye, I kind of rear-ended, and I saw the fist coming at my face. So I kind of reacted to it and moved my face, but I ended up being punched in my face twice.
Wow.
So he ended up physically assaulting me. And not only that, you see, because he is a pretty tall man, he also grabbed me and managed to take me and, you know, to put me and shove me on the stairs and to restrain me on the stairs. It was a shock. I wasn't expecting it. At that moment, my thinking was, oh my God,
what do I do in this?
Yeah, he's gonna beat me up badly. That was my thinking. So I was being restrained with his weight and his elbow on the stairs, and I started shouting, get off me, and obviously hitting him, trying to move from the restraint. And then my son hurt me, my eldest one hurt me, and he popped his head over the banister, and he saw him doing that to me. So I said, call the police. So he went to get his phone, call the police, but in that moment in time, he jumped me
trying to stop him.
Yeah, and he took the phone off his hand. So at that point, I was really scared for my son to be in danger. So immediately, I grabbed my phone and I called my mother-in-law for her to try to stop him. I was in such a shock that it didn't cross my mind right then and there
to go call the police.
Yes.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you why I did not call the police immediately, but it was such a shock because I wasn't expecting this. And then obviously my son was a witness of that, and then the kids upstairs, because they kind of heard the commotion, you know, they started crying, all this. So I just waited for my mother-in-law. She came and we left the house. I just grabbed my paperwork and left. After that, at my mother-in-law's, you know, I had a swollen face. I had, you know, the bruise on my face, bruises on my back. I took pictures of that because my back was really aching due to being pushed, you know, onto the stairs. And then I had to go to a walk-in because my nose, even though, you know, it wasn't broken because I couldn't feel like a broken bone pain, it was, you know, dripping and dripping and dripping. So I went to a walk-in, and they said to me, you need to go to the hospital because you might have a fracture in your skull because you're dripping transparent liquid. Ouch. And that's really dangerous. It could be brain liquid. So I ended up going to the hospital. Alhamdulillah, nothing severe, but yeah, you know, the bruises and swollen face and whatnot. And from there, my current journey began. I was completely disappointed.
Did your mother-in-law try to stop you not to contact the police and do a report?
My mother-in-law said that social services would take my children away. And at that time, I had no idea about how the UK system worked regarding domestic abuse, and I had no idea what were the chances of my children being taken away. So of course I was scared. I didn't know exactly what was I going to do at that point in time. Like I said, I was just shocked. I was trying to get better, trying to get, you know, a grip.
And also you're probably emotionally and mentally confused what has just happened, because there's the man you fell in love with and you got married, and now he's doing this to you.
Yes, and you know, being alone in a country you barely know, with no friends and no family, and only relying on his family, was very hard for me, because when something strikes in anybody's life, the first people you try to rely on is your friends and family. Yeah. You don't really go to the husband's side unless, you know,
you're close to them.
Yeah. Or unless it's not a domestic violence issue, let's just say it like that. And in this case, I had nobody. So we came to an agreement through his mom and dad. We came to an agreement. We spoke. We sat down. We spoke. I said, you know what? I don't want to live with you for the time being. This needs to change. And and we need to do something about this. So I was still having the sabr to consider working it out, you see.
Yeah.
Not really changing him, because you can't force someone to change. You have to do it yourself. And I was hoping
to give it another chance, if you're willing to make the changes.
Yeah, I was very, very willing, you know, for the sake of Allah, for the sake of my marriage, and for the sake of my children as well. So I'm pretty sure that many women understand this, because you know, if you really love your husband and you're trying to do the right thing and you're trying to do the Islamic thing, you would actually think like this, yeah, to try and give your husband another chance. So I did, but he left to his parents' house and I stayed in my house. And then all of a sudden, after a week, he came back saying that he couldn't live in his parents' house and that this was his house, and he was entitled to live there, even though we had an agreement of giving me 6 months' time to get my situation on track and then being able to move, because he wouldn't leave me in his house. So I felt pressured. I felt afraid that he was going to assault me again. I felt scared that things were gonna, you know, continue being the same, and I was right. They did. They continued being the same.
Was he abusive again? Did he hit you again?
He did not hit me again, but he did threaten me a second time to hit me. And that was because of the arguments, you see.
So what about the kids? Like, how was he with the children?
That's the most amazing thing, you see. It was me who first started abusing, and then the abuse started going to my eldest son, Michael. Funny enough, one day we had a situation when Michael tried to defend me because he was being verbally abusive in front of him. So he stepped in, tried to defend me, and then he started being abusive to him as well, verbally. We got kicked out of his house probably more than 50 times. We were told not to speak our language in the house, because this
obviously you could understand it when you speak.
Yeah, but you see, when you are a bilingual person, and then
you're used to Spanish as your first language.
And Pakistani people do that in their homes as well. They speak Mirpur, Urdu, you know, whatever it is, and nobody has the right to tell you what to speak or not to speak. It's part of who you are. And we were even restrained on talking our own language in our own house. So it was really, really, really a difficult situation. So Michael stepped in to defend me that day, and he started ranting at him and literally kicking us out of the house more than 50 times, like I said to you.
So where would you go? Keep going to your mother-in-law's house?
No, basically we would wait it out, let the argument calm down.
Then you'd go back in the house,
and just stay there. So I knew I had to do something about this. I knew that all the options that I had provided him with were not going to work. When he threatened me a second time to punch my face, that's when I drew the towel. That's when I said, okay, this is who you are choosing to be. This is who are you choosing to behave. You're not interested in praying. You're not interested in carry on doing, you know, the Islamic thing, the Sunnah thing. So we shouldn't be married. So my journey began at that point. And then just one day I decided to leave the house. It was really a scary moment for me. I had a breakdown.
Obviously a part of you still loved him and was thinking, what's just happened to this man that I...
You know what? My love became so little when he physically assaulted me, because I wasn't expecting that at all. And I actually believe that when someone loses control like that and gets to that kind of violence, I don't really think that that person can say, oh, I love you so much. It was such a, you know, it was a progress thing, from arguments to emotional violence to psychological violence, and it ended up in physical violence. So he had more than enough time to invest in his marriage, to try and do something about it, to change it, to look for help, but he didn't. So at that point, when I was physically assaulted, I said, I don't think you really love me as much as I did.
Yeah.
And because I love myself, I need to move on. I need to move forward. This is not the life I want for me and my children. And that's it. So from one day to another, I became homeless. From one day to another, I had to ask.
What about the little ones, the kids?
They went with me. Yeah, I took my children with me. I had to go to the council and say, you know what, this and this and this and this happened to me. Showed the paperwork, showed pictures of everything, and then pleaded homeless basically to the council in order for me to get help. Then a couple of days later, I went to the police, gave a statement, and said, this is what I've done. I took the kids, I left this house due to this, gave a statement. They were really nice to refer me to a firm here in London who deals with non-molestation orders, and they provided me with a non-molestation order. So I was safe because I expressed my fear of getting consequences because I left with the children. So they helped me to get all of that. Through legal aid, because to be honest with you, I left with nothing, just my clothes and my children. And then after that, you know, like any other women in my situation, I had to learn about the system. You know, the .gov.uk page became my best friend because I literally would read and read and read and read.
See what support you can get.
Yes, exactly. So I started learning about the benefits, what kind of benefits I would be entitled to, what to do, this and that. And alhamdulillah, up until today, I've managed to do everything. You see, when I first started this hard situation for me, this hard journey, I started with 25 processes. You know, Muslim divorce, registry divorce, I had to ask for child benefit, child tax credit, this and that. You know, home office.
Did you lose your job then at that point, or?
I had to, because
you couldn't go to work and be in and out with homeless, obviously. And
no, and mainly because my youngest child, he is 3, and I have nobody to take care of them. My mother-in-law used to take care of them, and when I used to work, but when this whole situation, you know, erupted, and she knew I left him, this and that, immediately things changed with them. Don't get me wrong, I still have a good relationship for the sake of the children and to keep and maintain peace, but undoubtedly things changed towards me because I wasn't with their son anymore, and they were supporting their son rather than obviously supporting me, even though they knew I suffered from domestic violence. So no more taking care of your children so you can go to work. They wouldn't be concerned about if I had money, how would I survive, this and that, you see. So I had to ask for help. And alhamdulillah, on websites I found very good organizations. One of them is a Zakat organization, and another one, it's a women's organization that gives services to situations like me, women in situations like me. And immediately I started receiving the support. But I obviously had to take the first step into leaving and facing the situation. I'm not going to tell you it was easy. It's really hard. It's a really fearful situation. But there's always light at the end of the tunnel.
Of course there is,
Yeah.
So now, did he not try to get in touch with you? Did not want to see the kids? Though his kids as well, weren't they? So like, obviously Mike was from your first marriage, but didn't he want to be with the children? Was he not missing the children?
Yeah, you see, when I
realize what I'm putting my own children through at the end of the day?
Yeah, when I left on that very same day, he came home and he obviously saw that everything was gone, my stuff and everything, and I wasn't there with the kids. He started texting me. At first were really violent texts. So I would not respond because the
Yeah.
police told me not to respond,
Yeah.
not to contact him.
Yeah.
They would do an investigation, so they opened an investigation, and eventually I was told that he would be arrested because I was pressing charges. The non-molestation order was going through at the same
Yeah.
time, and 2 days before he got served with that non-molestation order, I received really, really nasty messages, text messages, threatening messages on his behalf. And that's when I said, you know what, I think I've been a good person so far, and
I've tried everything.
And you're still harassing me like this. That's it, I'm through. So I called the police and I pressed charges of those text messages. Initially I thought it was harassment, but I was told it was public text menacing messages, and he was taken to court because of those text messages, and then 2 days after he got served the non-molestation order.
Right.
So he was convicted from those messages. It wasn't jail time, it was provisionary or condition, something like that it's called. To be honest with you, I can't remember the name, but basically it forbids him to contact me for 12 months, and also at the same time, if he does it again, he could end up in jail or with harsher at the same time the non-molestation order. So he's not meant to approach me or my eldest son, and we do have an agreement
He sees his children?
to see his children. So far so good, he sees his children. The mediator in that case, we managed to arrange that with my mother-in-law, and like I said to you, I have a really good relationship with her because my children are entitled to see their father.
Yeah.
Despite my situation with him
Yeah.
and him doing wrong to me, I believe that my children should not suffer the consequences
Yeah,
of that,
course.
and to keep their lives as stable as possible, especially because they're young. They're 3 and 4. So once they get older and they start asking questions, eventually we're going to have to sit down and discuss certain things. But right now, this is where we've been standing by so far.
Wow, because the thing is, the interesting part now is, did this not make, you said you lost your iman along the way.
Yeah.
And I think this happens to many women, especially when they revert to Islam and then they get married, and then they have all these expectations that yes, my life's going to be perfect now, I have the perfect husband, etc., etc. But now, like, when did you pick up your iman again? Like, didn't you want to think, you know what, I should be a Christian again? Or did you not blame the religion because you married a?
Yeah, you see, everybody keeps asking me that, and
Yeah.
it's a really interesting question because, like I said to you, when I reverted to Islam, I had the certainty that Islam was my true religion.
Yeah.
And
Nothing was going to get in the way of that.
nothing, yes. So when you have certainty,
Yeah.
you could be blindfolded and you can still believe.
Yes.
And
It's so
anything
true.
can happen to you and you still believe.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. You see, I did lost my deen, I did lost my imam to a really, really, really big level. Took my scarf off, started cursing and arguing and all these things that I stopped doing. And then I said, why? My essence as a Muslim was there. I quit everything. I did everything. I fought, lost people, arranged things with my mother and my family. Why now I'm letting it go for this disgraceful situation? Yes, but why? Allah is not to blame.
Yes.
In the end, I chose to marry him, and I chose to come, and I chose all these things.
Yes. It was
Even though it's also part of destiny.
Yes.
But I made those choices. So I said, no, I'm going to go back to Allah stronger than ever. I'm going to do my salah, and I'm going to ask, in du'as, everything that I think I deserve, and everything that I think that Allah can provide for me, which is from here to the end of time.
Yeah.
But I started,
How did you pick yourself back up again? How did you start become more practicing again? What did you do?
simple as putting my masala on the floor, pouring my heart out, crying. I cried and cried and cried. Every single time I prayed a salah, I was completely shattered and I cried. And I poured my heart out and I said, Allah, if this is what you want from me, just give me a sign to have more sabr. If this is what I need to endure in order for you to forgive me of certain things, this is what I have to do. And if this is what you want me to live in order for me to understand something in the future, then this is what I have to do. And it was amazing because rather than being or having disbelief, I became almost in an automatic way to have that relationship to Allah. So it was again back to my five prayers every day. It was back to doing dua. It was back to crying. It was back to doing everything.
Having that spiritual connection.
Yeah, the connection that I had from the very beginning when I did my shahada. And all of a sudden things started happening. So I left him and I started picking myself up. I was put in a B&B for 3 months. It was really hard. A B&B which was very, very, very dirty, filthy. The kitchen was shared. It was not halal. All four of us were in a small room with a toilet.
I remember you saying.
Yeah, and it was really hard.
So your mind was tested in different stages.
In many ways, you see, in many ways, no job, so no income, taking my kids to school from a long distance, waking up early, catching 3 buses to get to school, coming back, the kids obviously, their dad, me trying to explain the situation in a good way for them to understand. Me trying for my eldest son not to worry about things, me trying to provide for my children. So I had to do so many things, and alhamdulillah, the duas were answered. So my benefits came through. I've received help from an organization called Islam Wise, which is in the Green Lane Masjid in Birmingham, who helps reverts as well. For them to, if they have any situations, just to go and talk and explain, and they get supported. I was also helped by the Green Lane Masjid. They have a team who helps not only reverts but sisters in need. They also have a food bank that was really handy for me at the very beginning, and so far along the way I've met amazing people. So Allah has blessed me with everything in a positive. I'm living proof, Musart, that when you give your heart to Allah in faith, Allah
takes care of everything.
Allah takes care of everything. It wasn't disbelief, but I was so doubtful at first that I was going to succeed. But then I picked up my iman and everything, and then just let the duas pour on the, on the mat, and bit by bit. So from all those 25 processes that I started doing, all of them went through positive. So alhamdulillah, I can't complain.
Mashallah, mashallah. Well, your journey is absolutely amazing, and I think it's very inspiring to see that it's such a great story of faith. That if you've got your strong hold on faith, you can get through absolutely everything. And I think, like you said, and I'm very happy to hear, and it's quite humbled to hear that, the fact that when you say, I put myself in that situation, I can't blame the religion and stuff like that. And it's quite inspiring because lots of women do lose that connection, and they think, they're just looking for a place to blame. And I think you had come quite across that, above that, you can't blame the situation if you've decided that for yourself. So as it's been amazing having you on, I would like you to what advice would you give to women who have been in a similar situation, like if when it comes to if they end up losing their deen, because that's your message that you're working on now, is you're inspiring women to not to lose their deen, not to lose Islam, because they become, once they get married and they have this situation of having that, domestic violence or whatever. So what your advice would be, if you want to let them know? That'd be great.
My advice to you sisters is, no matter what, stay Muslim above all. That's one thing that I've said, that's my motto, Muslim above all, because yes, we are Muslims, yes, we know we're going to, yes, indeed, there are bigger tests than mine, or even smaller tests, but endure and have sabr. Sabr is really important, and when you make a decision to leave a situation like I did, just trust Allah 100%, get help. There is help out there. If you actually need to get in touch with people, to to find out what you need to do, what you can do, what you're entitled to, go to the .gov.uk page, and at the same time to all those organizations that are able to help Muslims and women at the same time. Do not lose faith, do not lose your deen. If you have, come back to it. That's the only way you can survive a massive test. And what else can I say? I mean, if you would like to get in touch with me, I am on Facebook. You can request me.
Yes.
I'm under Karla Nagy.
And you've got a fan page?
No, I don't have a fan page, but that's just my Facebook page. Karla Nagy, N-A-G-U-I, Karla with a K. And I'm more than welcome to help you. My journey now starts, with a positive path. That's the next bit, because I'm trying to help revert sisters, and I'm trying to help other sisters who are going through the same thing that I'm going. And inshallah, I'll have better news later on.
Well, inshallah. Thank you so much. As it's been amazing sharing Karla's journey today, one thing I would like to say to you all is, every week I meet a new guest, and they always leave me with something. And what I've felt I've learned from Karla is, even though as being a coach and stuff like that, but which is obviously, I think we all go through lots of hardships in life and struggles in life, and we always think we want to look for somebody to blame. So Karla has mentioned a very important point today, that you can't blame the situation that you chose to be in. You chose to be in that. Now you have to fight through it, you have to go through it, and you have to accept all the changes that are coming along, because if you've made that choice, it's up to you now to take it on a positive note or a negative note. Now, the best way to take it on a positive note is to say, okay, what can I learn from the situation now? What can I use for this benefit to others? Now, although Karla has been through so much, now she's going to use it to inspire other women who have begun to lose their faith and lose their deen and lose their way of being a Muslim. So she's here to guide you back. So until next time, thank you for watching the live show with Musart.